Charlie, we're going to break away from you for just a second because we now have a video statement from President Trump's Truth Social account. So we're going to listen in.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels and international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer. From Lebanon to Yemen and Syria to Iraq, the regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts. And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas.
We just heard from President Trump. That was a statement he made on his Truth Social account. In his video statement laying out the, quote, mass terror from Iran that led to this. And Charlie D'Agata, we're going to go to you. What do you make of what you just heard from the president?
Yeah, well, he sort of laid out a litany of attacks against U.S. forces here in the region, actually, which began with the takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. You are talking about decades ago. But he reminded in that message that Iran's troops or proxies have attacked the United States or U.S. interests in this region for decades, going back to not only the war in Iraq, where Iranian weaponry and Iranian proxies were taking out or were attacking and killing U.S. troops. He recalled the attack on the Marines barracks in Beirut that killed almost 300 people. The USS Cole, if you remember, in Yemen. That was one of the first attacks. And he said hundreds of attacks against U.S. forces throughout Iraq. And this is about eliminating, he said in his words, those Iranian threats that Iran continues to attack in places through their proxies in places like Lebanon, Syria, Iraq. And here, I believe he was just about to mention, by backing Hamas, after the attacks of October 7th, the worst atrocities that Israel has seen on its soil. So putting Iran as a sort of patron to all of those attacks against U.S. forces, U.S. allies, is a way of justifying it. What we don't know yet is whether this is the beginning of a long campaign, whether this is a messaging to get Iran essentially to lay down its weapons, to not fight back, to find some sort of peaceful arrangement, or face much more force from the United States and Israel, for that matter, going ahead. And obviously, this is something that would be classified even if we had that information as to what's going to go forward. But just to remind our viewers, we were woken to air raid sirens this morning at about 8:20. And that wasn't because there was incoming. That was to alert the people of Israel from the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, that an attack was underway, a joint attack between the United States and Israel, hitting targets we know in Tehran from our folks on the ground and in 4 other cities inside Iran. As far as we know, The Iranians haven't tried a retaliation. There's only been one air raid siren, but the Iranians said that they would, and they can. They have the capacity to do so with their missiles that can reach here in Israel and to U.S. forces in this region. So that's where we stand now, and that was sort of what President Trump laid out, that this is kind of like an opening salvo to what we may see in the days and weeks ahead.